joining us here on the Rich Eisen Show, another one of our favorites. He kicks off this NBC Sports on Peacock lineup every single day. We're on after Dan Patrick, and he precedes Dan Patrick every single day with Pro Football Talk Live, and he's got a new book again coming out in the middle of March called Playmakers. You can pre-order it where all books are sold right now. Mike Florio back here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Michael?
Doing great, Rich. How are you?
All right, let's just jump right into it. As we know, there's always a surprise when coaches get fired, and today's that day where it happens with the regular season now in the books. And Brian Flores and the Dolphins is exactly that surprise. What happened there? What gives there?
Well, and that is a stunner, and dysfunctional teams do dysfunctional things. Look, I take it back to the base level, and really you take it to the top of the organization. Stephen Ross, owner of the team, absentee owner, doesn't work in South Florida, and doesn't really have his finger on the pulse of the organization the way he should. And it's a situation that becomes rife for turf battles, internal struggles, and acrimony between coaching staff and front office. And it sure sounds like there's a lot of that there. They're putting out the word that Brian Flores wasn't masterful at relationships with people like GM Chris Greer or quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. Look, when you pluck a guy off of the Bill Belichick tree, you're not getting him for relationships. You're getting him because he can win football games. And you have to accept the fact that even if these guys insist they're not the same as Belichick, at some fundamental level, they are the same as Belichick because they've seen how he conducts business. And that's the problem. If you don't win early, then you need to worry about whether or not somebody is conspiring to get you out of there, or the people that you're making upset because you're trying to do things in a Belichickian way are fed up and they want to move on. And I just feel like something like that has trickled into this, that Brian Flores isn't a guy who's going to play the political game. He's just trying to win football games. And meanwhile, other forces in the organization bring him down and make the case to Stephen Ross as they whisper in his ear in the luxury suite while Flores is coaching the team that this guy needs to go, that this is all his fault. I think there's plenty of blame to go around, but I think most people would say Brian Flores, given that he didn't have the best players by far of his peers, he's done pretty well with what he's had. So that made it very surprising. There's always more to the story behind the scenes, but I just feel like that entire setup where Ross is just a fly-in for the games and go back to New York type of an owner, it's not an ideal way by far to run an NFL organization.
Well, he knows enough that he says it's not about Tua or Deshaun Watson. And so how does the quarterback situation play into what happened and what happens next, do you think?
I'm told that Flores didn't want Deshaun, that it was all one big distraction from what they were trying to do. And look at what happened when the trade deadline came and went. That's when they started winning football games because Ross wanted Deshaun. Ross wanted Joe Burrow. The Bengals wouldn't trade down from the top spot a couple of years ago. Then Ross wanted Tua. He got Tua. Then Ross wanted Deshaun, and he's going to keep pushing for Deshaun Watson. I don't see why he would change his mind. What did we see from Tua over the balance of the season that makes us think he's a potential franchise quarterback? They're desperate to get another Dan Marino or someone who is in that same category as among the best quarterbacks in football. And Ross barnstorms in, says what he'd like to have happen, pushes for certain things, but he's not there grinding away every single day with everyone else. So none of it surprises me, and I really don't think this means that Tua wins and he's the guy moving forward. I still think Ross is going to push for Deshaun Watson or someone else if he thinks there's some other alternative to Tua that's out there that can help him get the Dolphins to where he wants them to be.
So are you saying your best to your knowledge and insight into this is that Ross is a fly-in, game day, fly-out guy, but then flies in figuratively to make such a crucial mandate as to who the quarterback is and who they're drafting? Is that how?
It's not a mandate. See, one of the privileges of being a billionaire is you never have to give orders. You don't have to. There's a way you make your preferences known, and the people who are working for you who hope to continue working for you will be paying attention to what the boss likes. It's like Costanza in the calzone. When Steinbrenner wants a calzone, Costanza's getting him a calzone every single day until Steinbrenner decides he likes something else. I mean, that's what most owners will do. So then they can say, "Oh no, I'm not involved. I don't tell my people what to do." No, you don't tell them what to do, but you make it clear what you would like them to do, and if they're smart, they'll do it.
And I guess is that why Greer stays? Because the conversation of Tua over Herbert is one that still resonates today, even though both are out of the playoffs again. So
well, Greer's got the cover. Along the lines of, hey, I didn't want Tua. You're the one that wanted him, boss. I mean, it's always an awkward conversation to have, but I'm always troubled when one goes and one stays, regardless of whether it's GM goes and coach stays or coach goes and GM stays. I believe there should be equal accountability in a football operation, and any time one survives and one goes, especially when you look at the team and say they're really not in that category of teams that we think are kind of lost their way and need a reset. Anytime one stays and one goes, it's a sign of dysfunction, it's a sign of a power struggle, and it's a sign that there are different standards of accountability being applied when everyone should be under the same mandate. We all survive and thrive, or we all fail. Because if you know there's a path to I can save my ass and I can blame it on someone else, what happens when adversity strikes? People start blaming someone else in order to cover their own butts. And when the owner's not there every single day, it's easier to pull that off.
Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk here on the Rich Eisen Show. You just said that you don't like it when a general manager stays and a coach goes, or vice versa. Well, as we are currently chatting here after 1 o'clock Eastern on the Monday after the regular season, Dave Gettleman has announced his retirement. It's official. He's out as the general manager of the Giants, but Joe Judge is still there. What can you tell us about what the Giants' plans are in this position?
Ownership likes Joe Judge, and ownership would like to find a way to keep Joe Judge for a variety of reasons. Beyond the fact that they like him, they've had Ben McAdoo 2 years and out. He actually made it up until the last game of his second year. Then Pat Shurmur, 2 years and out. They understand what a bad look it is for them to go 3 straight coaches 2 years and out. They want to keep Joe Judge if they can. The locker room, I'm told, is divided on Judge, and we've seen the antics over the past week or so, which have made no sense. It's like he was trying to talk his way out of a job with the things he said and the decision he made yesterday to do the quarterback sneak on 3rd and 9.
Have you ever seen that, Mike?
Mike, it's still goofy.
Have you ever seen that before? I mean, that's not a professional football move. That's kind of like, I'll be honest, that's Pop Warner stuff. You know what I mean? I don't even know what Pop Warner team would do something like that. Where you
especially in a meaningless game. It's more of a like if you're playing for something and it's a windy day or something like that, or there's some, or your punter's injured. I mean, there's a set of circumstances where it makes sense to just get the ball farther away from the goal line, but it's not like they were on the 1 yard line. And it just seems odd. When you're in a game that has no stakes whatsoever, why are you doing that? And so it was unprecedented, and it's almost like he's trying to get fired at this point. But my understanding is what the Giants hope to do is hire a GM and let the GM make the decision on who the coach will be. But in the hiring of the GM, we'll have a pretty good idea of what the GM's going to do. Right?
Exactly. I don't understand.
Kevin Abrams, he's keeping Joe Judge. If they bring somebody from the Patriots, he's keeping Joe Judge. If they bring somebody in who doesn't know Joe Judge from Adam, then it's probably not going to be Joe Judge. These general managers show up with a short list of coaches that they would hire if they ever get the chance, compiled based on 20, 30 years of experience. And if Joe Judge's name isn't on that list, then maybe they kick the can for 1 year. I don't know, but it sure sounds like ownership wants to continue to hide in the background and let others take the public criticism for the current state of the team.
I don't know if you saw, again, I don't see it live, obviously, because I'm competing against them, but I did see on Twitter Michael Strahan's reaction when Glazer mentioned Abrams as the possibility of being the general manager at Joe Judge's, behest, and he just screamed, "Oh, no." That's what he said. I don't know if you saw that. You should seek that.
I did.
I mean, so he's like, "Oh, no," and then basically said the Giants should just go outside the organization and start from scratch. Stray said that, which was quite something.
My theory on Giants ownership is pretty simple. There isn't much of a difference between the Maras and the Joneses. The difference is the Joneses have no qualms about attaching their names, faces, and voices to the fact that they're making their decisions. Now, the Joneses don't have to deal with the back pages of the tabloids. I think the Maras would rather their GM, their coach, be the one that gets caricatured on the back page, and they always find a way to stay out of the fray. Now, just don't show up at any events and speak, and you won't get booed, but otherwise the coach and the GM get the focus, and the Maras you've got John, who's a very active owner. You've got his brother Chris, who's the head of personnel. They've got a nephew who's involved in this. And I understand these are family businesses, but at a certain point, it's a multi-billion-dollar football operation, and you need to entrust it to the professionals, not just do it because, hey, we own the team and it's fun and we think we know what we're doing. Look at what's happened. 10 years for the Giants. 1 playoff appearance, no postseason wins since Super Bowl 46. I'm amazed in hindsight that they won Super Bowl 42 and Super Bowl 46, given the way the team has been run over the past decade.
Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk here on the Rich Eisen Show. I'll give you a choice here, Mike. Here's a little sports talk radio conversation for you. So you got in Denver, you got a situation where a general manager's there, and there's no quarterback of the future unless you really believe in Drew Lock. You could turn something around. In Minnesota, you got no general manager at all, and you've got a quarterback who's who's paid like he's Garrett Cole, but only 1 more year left on that contract, and he really hasn't won very much. And then you got Chicago, where you got your future quarterback already drafted and ownership expecting you to turn whatever's right there into gold if you consider, Justin Fields' straw. Which is the best job, do you think, for a coach in the NFL, Mike Florio?
Well, they're all open for a reason. So none of them are great at this point.
And Denver's ownership might change, too.
Well,
how about that?
Denver ownership will change. It will change. I'll be shocked at this point if ownership remains in the Bolin family. I think the team's going to get sold. Now, George Payton is entrenched, but how entrenched are you if new owner comes in and says, I'm a multi-billionaire. I'll write your buyout and here's your check, and we'll go get somebody else. In Chicago, I want to know what Ted Phillips' role is going forward. Is he still in charge of the football operation? He's been the president since 1999. They have 3 postseason victories in 22 years of Ted Phillips being in charge of the football operation. So is he going to be neutralized? Is there somebody else there? In Minnesota, I'd be more comfortable if the Wilfs were not absentee owners like Stephen Ross, but they have first-class stadium, first-class practice facility, commitment to spending money. It's just a matter of them getting the right people in place. And without ownership there, I think they need a strong person who runs the team day in and day out and acts like the surrogate owner. I'm not saying it should be a former coach, because coaches are good at coaching. They're not very good at being anything but coaches, but they need somebody to run that building, whether it's the GM, whether it's the VP of football operations, and be that presence every day. But they've been, look, Rick Spielman was there 16 years. Mike Zimmer was there 8 years. Even though they're not showing up every day at the facility, they let their guys do their thing. And so of those 3, to me, when you consider all factors, I'd say that it's got the potential, because Kirk Cousins, you can unload him on somebody. Somebody will take him on. I don't know whether you have to pay part of the salary or do whatever, but it's only $35 million. The market's now $45 million, and maybe you find – I don't know. I really don't know who you find to take Cousins for 1 more year. And I know Cousins wants to stay in Minnesota, but he's got real limitations. He'll generate some great stats, but when the play that's called falls apart, he can't improvise. And that usually ends up being the ceiling on what that offense can do.
But you also have Jefferson there and Cook, so which one would you choose, Mike? I know.
Right now, the Minnesota job would be the top for me. I'd go Minnesota, then Denver, then Chicago, because Chicago, as long as Ted Phillips is there, I don't want anything to do with Chicago.
How about that? And so what about a couple more minutes left with Mike Florio. Did Rich Bisaccia save his and maybe Mayock's job? Because if I'm Mark Davis, I'm looking around this beautiful stadium there in Vegas, with Madden's, wife just lit the figurative lamp there, and the place is going nuts, right? And it's Las Vegas, Nevada, and I've got the hottest game in town. And they just won a playoff game. And my guys pushing buttons like Bisaccia and Mayock's, draft choices, some of them are just stellar. Jacobs, Crosby, and Renfro. What do you think? Do you stick with it?
Golick and I were talking about this earlier, and he made a great point. Sometimes the answer is right in front of your face. And when you consider the impact that their achievement of a playoff berth after everything they went through, the departure of John Gruden, the Henry Ruggs tragedy, the ups, the downs, the highs, the lows, the blowout loss to the Chiefs that was the low water mark, and then they win 4 in a row, and they fight and scratch and claw, and they face an unprecedented situation, literally unprecedented.
Yes.
I know we like to overhype things because it's what we do. I think the passage of time will make what happened last night seem bigger, not lesser.
I agree.
to have 3 teams' fate tied to one game, one 10-minute overtime period, and all the machinations and all the possibilities of what could be done. And I don't know how you, after what's happened to get to the playoffs, regardless of whether or not they beat the Bengals on Saturday, I don't know how you don't make Rich Bisaccia the coach now. And I've come a long way in 24 hours, but you mentioned the Vikings and the whole Kirk Cousins thing. I think back to what the Vikings did in 2017. Sam Bradford gets hurt. Case Keenum comes in. They go 13-3. They get to the brink of the Super Bowl, and then they throw Case Keenum out the door, and they pay all that money to Kirk Cousins. He goes to the playoffs once in 4 years. Like Golick said, sometimes the answer is staring you in the face. I thought at the time the Vikings should have kept Keenum. I think the Raiders should keep Bisaccia. And, if it doesn't work, then you'll know that in a couple of years. But how do you turn your back on this lightning in a bottle that they've engineered in Las Vegas? You can't. You can't. And whoever comes in to try to follow that act is going to be operating with one hand tied behind his back, because everybody's going to be saying, well, they should have just kept Bisaccia if the new coach has any struggles whatsoever.
Well, it looks like that new coach, if it would be Harbaugh, would be my college coach, right? Who, by the way, his defensive coordinator in those championship years in San Francisco and in Stanford just got fired by Denver. So, maybe that's what Mark Davis is thinking about. I don't know.
Look, the buzz Rich had been building, and it was getting stronger and stronger. Jim Harbaugh to the Raiders. Now what I'm hearing is that he's playing the game, and God bless him. When you get leverage, whatever profession you're in,
yep,
go out and use it. Get your money. He cut his salary in half last year when things weren't going well. Now things are going well. There's NFL interest. Take that and turn it into a better contract. When you perform, you get paid. And I won't be surprised if he ends up with a new contract and staying put at Michigan, especially since it's going to be very difficult now to follow Rich Bisaccia into the Raiders coaching job. And I don't know, would the Bears be interested?
Yeah.
Would any of these teams be interested? Why wouldn't you be? He was 44-19-1
right
in 4 years with the 49ers. But it's definitely something that folks need to seriously consider. He can be a tough guy to get along with, but you know what? Most successful coaches are tough guys to get along with.
Mike, thanks for the time. Really appreciate it, as always. Let's stay in touch. I'll be always reaching out to you. Thanks again.
Anytime, Rich. Take care.
You got it. That's Mike Florio. Catch his shows here on NBC Sports on Peacock, and follow him at Pro Football Talk. I follow him. You should as well. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.